I recently got two new pens, one for me and one for you. So if you're interested in hearing more, stick around. I consider myself quite a fountain pen enthusiast, but I also consider myself someone who is much more of a user and less of an expert or someone with deep technical knowledge on fountain pens and all the ins and outs. So today we're going to talk about my experience using these two BENU pens. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's been like writing with these two pens as someone who primarily uses Japanese style very fine nibs. I first wanted to say these were gifted to me by BENU. BENU reached out a few months ago asking if I was interested in receiving a pen and reviewing it. And that was one of those moments where I truly felt like I had manifested it, because almost a year ago I participated in the 8 pen questions, and I think one of the questions had something to do with what would you like to get as your next pen or something like that. And I actually mentioned the BENU Euphoria as a pen that I had wanted to try. It was one of those pens that I had been wanting to try out for a really long time, but I hadn't had an opportunity to test one out in person. I don't really know a lot of fountain pen people in real life, and I normally I like to try a pen before I make that purchase, but it was always in the back of my mind to get one. I had an eye on a particular model in the 8 pen questions, but that is a Goulet exclusive. So anyway, I couldn't believe it when they reached out. Honestly, it was one of those truly surreal moments where I was really excited. And truthfully, they've been so wonderful to talk to. And while this isn't the type of pen that I normally go for, that's exactly why I was so excited to try the BENU pen and get myself a little sparkly jewelry for my pen case. So really, really big thank you to BENU. And as I mentioned in my last video, I recognize how lucky I am to be able to have products sent to me, especially something that I had already had on my wish list for almost a year. And I couldn't believe it when they were open to allowing me to select a second pen that I will be able to share with you. So let's get right into it. In terms of fountain pen reviews, there are so many other creators on YouTube who do a very thorough job of reviewing pens. And something I've noticed about these BENU pens are that they are quite beloved, and there are a lot of videos out there already that speak to all the wonderful things about the pen in the first place, which is why it was on my wish list. Before I get into it, I'm going to have a sip of my coffee because it is first thing in the morning and I can tell that my voice is still waking up. So if there's one thing that my videos are, is they are chatty. So grab something cozy while we hang out and chat. I'm going to approach this very casually today. I'll do my best to try to do some comparisons and try to give you a sense of what you can expect if you're a first-time BENU user like myself. But hopefully you can appreciate this beginner perspective and I can share some of my learnings with you. Okay, so the first pen here is called the, and if I actually have some notes here, so maybe I'll actually put this here so I can reference my notes. I did a little bit of research on these pens for the video. So this model here, this beautiful purple, green, magenta, hand-painted pen, and I specifically tried to film this video during the day so you could really see a proper close-up of how gorgeous this pen is. But in case this doesn't look good on the camera, I will insert some additional shots of it so that you can really get some nice close-ups. But this is called the BENU Collection Euphoria Summer Magic. And this is hand painted by an artist named Ninel Gevorgyan. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. I should have tried to look up the pronunciation. But I believe this is an in-house artist that has been part of the BENU team since 2022. Summer Magic is one of the pens that they have produced or they have painted on. Some of the other pens that this artist has worked on the BENU website are Snowfall Mirage, Purple Heart, Love's Little Lark, Puff Adder, and Talisman Capricorn. So I'll share a link in the description that shows you specifically all the pens that this artist has worked on. But as far as the description of this pen, I copied some of this down because I think it's a really nice description. So it's deep purple, which evokes the mystical hues of a tropical night sky under full moon, contrasted by shimmering pink flecks that capture the essence of a vibrant summer blossom. So I know we are in the winter season right now, at least we are in Canada. I know we're not quite in spring. I know summer is coming. But when I saw this pen, I just fell in love with it. It is so beautiful. It is unlike anything that I have in my collection. And the fact that they have, like, it's just so beautiful. And the fact that they have these very meticulously painted birds on them in this full moon, I just think it's beautiful. And you can actually see there's some purple shimmer as well in this pen, and then these magenta shimmering pink flecks are a little bit bigger. So what a beautiful pen. The bottom half of the pen is made with emerald resin with a chameleon effect. So you can see there's like a bit of green, there's some purple, which transitions from green to purple. So this is the first pen. The second pen, maybe let me just show you. So yeah, you can see it's got stainless steel hardware. This BENU is actually like engraved in. And this is what the grip section looks like. And then this is a flex nib, which I was excited to try. We'll talk about that. The second pen is a BENU Euphoria exclusive. And this one is called Milk and Honey. And this one's described as a swirl of milky white and semi-transparent amber, evoking a cozy, comforting essence that's perfect for a crisp autumn day. Yeah, I mean, how beautiful is this? I love this sort of milky white. I'm much more of an off-white cream color fan over like stark pure white. So I always gravitate to paper and pens that are more of like an off-white color. I love this amber. I really love this combination of this amber and white, and then these gold flecks. So I was really torn between, there was also the bourbon pen that I really liked as well. That one was super shiny. There was another one called Vodka on the Rocks. And yeah, but this one, I don't know, there was something about this one that was so bright and cheerful, and I just fell in love with it, and I thought, you know what, go for the one that really speaks to you. And this one is in a 1.1 stub nib. So my understanding is that these two nibs are a relatively newer offering from BENU. And in addition to having a BENU Euphoria on my wish list for almost a year, another thing that I have been starting to dabble into is different nibs. So most of the pens that I currently use are either Pilot, Sailors, and Platinums, and they're all kind of in that fine, extra fine range. But I do have a lot of ink, and I do have a lot of ink samples, and some of those inks don't play well with fine nibs. So something I had been starting to look into last year was wanting to expand my nib size collection, and try to find nibs that offered an opportunity to show more ink properties if I wanted to play with inks. So I did have a stub nib on my wish list. I was actually thinking about getting a TWSBI Eco with a stub nib, and last year I did invest in a couple of soft fine semi-flex nibs. So we'll talk about that, and we're going to do a bit of a comparison. So the stub nib is a brand new nib to me, and the this kind of semi-flex nib, I do have a couple of other pens with similar nibs. So we will take a little look at that as well. Okay, so those are the two pens. Okay, I wrote down some specs as well in case you were curious. So in terms of material, it's a high quality resin. The clips are stainless steel. The length capped is 14.9 centimeters or 5.86 inches. And it weighs 26 grams. The cap has a screw on, and it can be posted. It is quite a big pen if you post it. Like, I normally like to post my pens, and I actually have been using these pens unposted because it's a little too long for me. The refills are standard large international size converters, which we will look at in a second, and ink cartridge. So it's a 72 millimeter or 2.8 inches. And it's a lifetime warranty for these pens. So I haven't really looked into whether that is a standard or not for pens, which is a terrible thing to say for such expensive objects that we invest our money in. But I really love the fact that these are lifetime warranties. So that was good to know. Okay. Another point I saw was that these pens can be converted to an eyedropper fill. So I have never done that with a pen. I don't think I have the courage to do that because, as I said, I consider myself quite like a beginner in the fountain pen world, and I don't know, I get nervous trying things out like that. But it's really cool to know, and I can imagine you could fit a lot of ink in here if you converted this to an eyedropper. And if you are a beginner fountain pen user like myself, I believe an eyedropper means that you are able to turn this entire bottom section into, like, essentially you can fill it with ink. And I don't know the specifics, but I believe you put like a silicone grease or something to help seal the pen so it doesn't leak out. And instead of having a converter, you can basically use this entire thing to store your ink. So you can fill this pen with quite a lot of ink. That's my understanding of an eyedropper. But if you have more experience and I have shared something inaccurate, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will correct. It'll be a learning experience for all of us. So, okay. One of the things that I was really excited about as well with trying out these different nibs is I really wanted a pen that could not only show different ink properties, but potentially be a pen that I could use with my shimmer inks. I have a relatively small collection of shimmer inks. I did purchase 2 bottles of shimmer inks very early in my fountain pen journey, and And I actually haven't really had a lot of luck using them in my pens because they did clog up my pens when I tried. So I'm excited. So one of the things that I was really excited to do was to actually try it in something like a stub nib or even a broad nib, that kind of thing, just to see if I could have more luck. And I have heard that BENU pens handle shimmer pretty well. So that was another big draw for me, is I wanted to kind of have a pen that I could dedicate to like fun inks. Okay, so every time I get a new pen, I always ink it up with Kon Peki, which is a Pilot Iroshizuku ink. And the reason why I do that is because I like to see how it might write and compare to other pens that are inked with the same ink, just so that I kind of have a nice starting point and a base. And last year, I actually... where is it? So last year, I spent quite a amount of time sort of writing out everything, like putting Kon Peki in all of my pens and testing out how they wrote. I learned that when you dip a pen, things come out a lot different than when you actually ink the pen. So I don't know if you can see this, but all of these pens I had just dipped because I didn't want to fill them with the same ink. But you can see how much lighter, not all, like this medium took it really well despite being dipped, but everything else was kind of on the lighter side. Whereas when I inked it and then I kind of let it, I usually waited like a day to allow the ink to really saturate into the feed. I don't know if that was necessary, but that just seemed like a good idea. You can really get a sense of how it'll actually write in the pen. So as much as I like using dip pens, my conclusion with this sort of personal experience was that you really need to ink the pen in order to see how it's going to write. And because I took the time to do all of this with Kon Peki, that just kind of became my default ink that I would use for all of my new pens. So I wish I had had the foresight to, do this with enough room to add to my collection. Obviously, I wasn't planning on going crazy and really expanding my collection, but this is my 2024 cousin, and I love referring to this page, honestly, but it's now kind of stuck in here, and I don't know if I want to redo all of these writing samples because this took me a really long time, and I'll tell you, when all of your pens are inked with the same ink, it gets really boring, for me anyway. So I had a couple of weeks, I think almost a month or so, where everything I was writing was in Kon Peki with all my different pens, and it was really cool to kind of see how all of them wrote, but it just really got boring, and it reminds me that the reason why I have multiple pens is because I like to have multiple inks that I'm using at the same time. So a really valuable experience. I love looking at how different all of these look against each other, just the different line variations, and look how light this Kaweco Sport Fine is, fully inked with Kon Peki. So I love that in some of them, like this Pilot Decimo EF, there's no shading. Even in my Pilot Vanishing Point, it's a lot lighter than the medium, but there is some shading that shows. So interesting to see how the Sailor Pro Gears really brought out a lot more of the darker color compared to my Vanishing Point. Same with the Platinums. Just super, super interesting. I thought this was a really cool, worthwhile experiment. So if you ever feel like doing something like this, I highly recommend it because it really allows you to learn a lot more about your pens. Something that I also keep is a pen and ink log, and I keep that in one of my traveler's notebooks. So I have one insert now too, because my collection is growing of all the pens that I have in my collection. So it's a work in progress. I'm actually, one of my goals for this year is to finish, to sort of finish this like setup essentially. But I have all of my pens that I draw on the side, and I just have some notes, and then I try. Sometimes I don't always get to it, but I try to write down all of the inks that I have inked in that pen. So yeah, it's a work in progress. Like, this isn't done yet, but it's been really helpful because I have sort of dedicated pages specifically to certain pens. So even if I haven't finished the drawing of it, I have been noting down what I've inked it with. So the idea here is that you can see how different inks look with the same pen. Yeah, so it's, yeah, so the idea here is that sometimes I even add some like notes on how I feel writing with the pen. And it's been pretty good. I like this style. I think these will last me a long time because it'll take me a long time to fill up these pages in theory. But the idea is that I get to have a comparison with how different inks look with the same pen. But I also think it's valuable to see how different inks look, how an ink looks in different pens. And that was the intention of this pen log. And admittedly, I have been less up to date with updating this because I don't always use the same ink that often. So I have been, when I remember, I have been writing more notes because I can't see myself filling up like one line. But the one that does get the most use is Kon Peki. So I haven't filled in this side yet, but I have been pretty good about keeping up to date with this one. So you can see here, I have the BENU Euphoria Milk and Honey 1.1 Stub, so that was this one. And I'll just kind of do a close-up here. So you can see here that it's actually pretty saturated, honestly. And then you can see I have the BENU Euphoria Summer Magic, and this was really interesting to me. This was the first time I have really experienced feathering. So that was interesting. So I think this is Tomoe River paper. This is a Galen leather insert that I got in 2023. So it was kind of before the whole Sanzin situation. So I'm pretty sure this is like pre-Sanzin, which to my understanding was pretty good with fountain pen ink and handling fountain pen ink, like not as much bleed through, that kind of thing. You can see this completely bled through on the back as well, which I found very surprising. So this is a very juicy writer. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say about this pen is with the Stub, it didn't happen. It was very saturated, but it didn't feather or bleed through. But with this one, the top line was me just writing normally. The bottom line was me pressing harder on the flex. So I thought that was really interesting to learn. So actually what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try inking this up with Sailor Ink Studio. First of all, what a beautiful color. I got this ink sample from Tiffany from Toxmot, and I have been so excited to use this this ink. And I think it could be a really interesting ink for this pen. There's a lot of like blues and greens and purples, but also I think this is like, I would love to see if these properties come out in a flex pen. So we're going to go ahead and fill that up now. This one's already inked up, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm just going to grab, so I can show you how to ink this up, just in case you are curious to see. So I have already inked this up with Kon Peki. And one thing I will say was it was really challenging for me to clean out this converter. I tried cleaning it out by putting this in water and, you know, moving up the converter and down. Then I took it out and I used a syringe and I kind of like I moved this all the way to the back, and then I just kind of syringed water through the converter, and usually that is good enough to flush the converter out. But I had a lot of like residual ink on this side of the converter, and I couldn't figure out how to get to it. I had thought that I'd be able to like take off this Schmidt piece, but I could not do that. Something I forgot to mention as well, I'm just realizing with my specs, is I forgot to mention that this is a number 6 Schmidt stainless steel nib for both of these. Okay, so anyway, let's fill this up. I'm not sure if this will fit. Oh, okay. I mean, I guess it might fit. It'll be a bit tight, but let me try that out. So I've got my ink sample here, Ink Studio 224, and this is what it looks like. And we're just going to grab, try not to grab too much because I want to save some of this ink for other pens as well. Okay, so I'm going to just, I don't know if you saw that, but I'm just going to squeeze that in. It's actually nice that this pipette fits in here because this pipette doesn't always fit in converters, and then I have to use my syringe, which isn't the worst thing ever, but I like using these as well. Okay, so we're just gonna let that. This is actually quite a large converter compared to some of my other pens, which I can show you. Okay, so I can show you with a few of my other pens, just so you can get a sense while we're letting this ink saturate. I might as well show you a couple of other converters in case you're curious. So this is a Sailor converter, or sorry, a platinum converter. Okay, I'm a little all over the place. I'm getting ink everywhere. Okay. So anyway, I'm just gonna put this back in and we'll see if we can get that flowing. If I recall correctly, this was a relatively fast flowing pen. So I'm just gonna leave it upright off the side here and we'll talk a bit more. Okay, so we'll just talk really quickly about this BENU right here. So I currently have this inked with a shimmer ink. And this is, you can see here, Robert Oster's Heart of Gold. This is one of the first samples that I got from Danielle from my Dandelion Diaries. When we did our first ink exchange, I had just finished watching one of her videos where she raved about Heart of Gold, and she got me so excited about it that I really wanted to try it. So you can actually see from my ink log that I did actually try the ink in my, where is it? I did try the ink in my Kavigo Sport Brass, and I had a broad nib that I was using for some of my more lighter inks that I was having troubles with. And I don't know if you can see this, but not a single bit of shimmer came through, and it clogged the pen. So I think because it would be there, like there would be ink in it, but when I would try to write with it, it would be hard. It would either have hard starts, or it would just not really show any kind of shimmer. So After that, I was a little nervous about using shimmer inks with some of my other pens because I had thought, like, I thought a broad nib would, in any pen, might allow the shimmer inks to be used, if that makes sense. But because I had a bit of issues, I kind of just shy away from shimmer inks in general. But sometimes, you know, they're really pretty. And I also, very early in my journey, I bought these two inks from Ferris Wheel Press. I've only bought Ferris Wheel Press inks once, and that was in one fell swoop where there was some kind of uh, Black Friday or something sale. I was really interested in these two shimmer inks because I had seen all of these reviews and they looked so beautiful. So I really wanted these two inks, and because I had to pay shipping, and in order to get free shipping, I ended up buying a bunch of other inks. And looking back, I do have some regrets about that because Ferris Wheel Press isn't my favorite ink brand. But I would love to try these out because, I think they're beautiful. And actually, looking at them against this pen, I think these could have been. I'm actually really excited to finish up with this ink and try one of these two. I'm thinking maybe sparkling champagne would be a great pairing with this, but also Bookkeeper's Brass. This was the ink actually that I was most excited for because I love brass in general, and I love that it was like a shimmery brass. So I don't know. I think it could be an interesting match. So I currently have Heart of Gold inked, and I was very curious to see if the shimmer would come through. So I can show you that it does. It's hard to see, I guess, without... Let me see if I turn on some light, if that will help. Sometimes you need a little light to see the shimmer. I don't know if you can see that. It is kind of hard to see. But I will say, I did get some shimmer coming through. I wrote a couple of journal entries with it. All right, so I find that when I store it, I try to store it this way or this way. And I'll just do a little writing sample. So this is my first 1.1 stub. I don't have a lot to compare to, but I like that you can, on the downstrokes, you can get these kind of thicker strokes, and then when you go sideways, you get these thinner strokes, which I think is really cool. So it does make your writing really interesting. And when I had it inked with Kon Peki, I used it as headings. So I used it, let me just turn this off. I actually used it as headings. So it's kind of cool for making things stand out. And let's see. The darker parts is probably where the shimmer is going to show. It's hard to see. It's actually kind of hard to see. I don't know. I'll try to get some closer shots of it to see if I can use the light to kind of make that show. But see here, there's a lot more here. But this, I recall, like I think I took the shimmer and like really laid it on thick because I wanted to be able to see it. So I don't know if maybe my sample just got, there's like less shimmer in the sample. I'm not sure. So overall, I haven't had any hard starts. I have noticed some shimmer in one of my journal entries. I can't show you because it's like it was a private journal entry, but I did see the shimmer come through, so it is there. But overall, like it's just been really fun writing with a stub nib, and even if my conclusion in the end is that it's not so great for shimmer inks, which I don't think is true, but I think I want to try with a few more shimmer inks. It's just been really fun to write with in general, so I'm really happy with this nib size. It's one that I've been very interested in, and I'm really excited that I was able to try that out with this BENU pen. So you can see here, yeah, I'm just pressing down a little harder to see what would happen. It's not really making a difference. Yeah, really cool. Very, very cool. And what a beautiful pen. Let's see if my Summer Magic has finished. Okay. We're going to try to force it a little bit. Okay, so this is Summer Magic with Sailor Ink Studio. So we'll start with just no effort, no pressure. So it's pretty similar. Let me see if I can get you closer down. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little more pressure. So something that BENU did tell me is it's not an actual flex, like a proper true flex nib. It's like a semi-flex. So the idea is you're not going to be able to do like super crazy line variation you're not going to get super crazy line variation with this, but it just gives you enough to make writing kind of interesting. So that's when I apply a little bit of pressure. I'm curious if there's any kind of feathering, bleed through. So no bleed through. So I don't know if maybe it was just the combination of like Kon Peki and this pen being a very wet writer. So this is okay, and that's with a little more pressure. And keep in mind, I am definitely not an expert in fine flex. I didn't want to press so hard that I, felt uncomfortable. So I'm applying pressure, but I'm not really sure like how much pressure you can really apply. In terms of the nib itself, it is, hopefully it'll focus. You can see that there's these little cutouts. I do have two other sort of flexi pens. I've talked about this before on the channel, but this is a Platinum 3776 Century, and it is a soft fine nib. So it doesn't have those cutouts. It's not focusing. It doesn't have those cutouts, but it does have a little bit of, it is kind of like a semi-flex as well. And then the other pen that I have is my Pilot Custom 743, and this is a Falcon nib. This is a relatively newer pen. I got it at the end of last year. I was enjoying this soft find so much, but I have this permanently inked with platinum carbon black, and that's because I use it for my planners, and I also wanted, the reason why I chose the soft fine was I wanted some of that line variation because I was thinking I would use this pen for sketching as well, and so I thought it would be a little more dynamic to have something that had just a little bit of more like interesting variation. I loved this pen so much, and I loved this nib so much that I found myself really wanting to have a flex nib as well, or a semi-flex nib for other inks, because this is always being used with platinum carbon black, so I decided I wanted to try something else. This was all before BENU reached out, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to compare how these nibs write. And so let's do this on this page here. So this is, and the ultimate, in my opinion, the ultimate comparison would have been if I had inked all of these up with the same ink. But I don't really want to, I don't really want to flush these out and put them, put Kon Peki in them. So you'll have to bear with me with it being different inks. You're not going to get the full comparison because they're all going to be slightly different, but at least they're all Japanese inks, and maybe that will help. I'm not really sure. Anyway, let's give this a try. So we'll start with this one. And I don't know if you can see this, but it just, the ink just flows out so well in this, which is really cool. Sometimes when I do these little colored boxes, you can really see all the lines, or you really have to kind of fill in between. I don't know if I have an example, but see, this. I mean, that's an extra fine nib, but anyway, I just think that's really cool. So this is, and it's just coming out so dark, which I love, because I think something I wasn't sure about these Sailor inks is that they would come out really light. So I'm curious to see how this actually looks in a finer pen, but I suspect it'll maybe look a little closer to that, because I think I've heard these Sailor ink studio inks can be quite light, which is why I wanted to put it in a more a wetter pen, or a pen that might show more of the different ink properties. Okay, now we'll do, this is my Pilot Custom 743 with the FA nib. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it was a lot, there's a lot more feedback on the paper. And this is, Tacha Ume Murasaki. And this is just regular pressure. This is more. I would say this one is a little more flexible and bouncier, if that makes sense. And then we'll take a look at this last one here. So this is the Platinum Century 3776 and a soft fine. And you can hear that there was also quite a bit of feedback there. Okay, and then no pressure, a little more pressure. Okay, so I'm just going to try this one again. I don't know why I'm writing soft. So I would say that this is the most comparable to the 743. I do think that this one is probably the most stiff out of these other pens, but I don't know if that's because these two are gold nibs and this is a stainless steel nib. But flow-wise, this is stunning. It handles this ink so well. You can see, well, hopefully you can see if it focuses. It just shows a lot of really beautiful variation. I don't know why this is so difficult to show. My phone just doesn't want to focus today. But what a beautiful ink. I think it does a really good job of showing the different, like you can see there's the purple, there's a bit of the, oops. Okay, I guess that's another learning. It's still drying. Oh, that's still drying. On this one's, okay, so maybe something else to note. It does take a little, when you do press hard, it does take a little more time for this to dry. But I think it's really beautiful. It's definitely the thickest of all three. And you can maybe get thinner lines with these two. A little more variation. But overall, like this is a super smooth writer. Like it just glides on the page. And these ones definitely have a little more feedback. So if you prefer less feedback and more of that sort of smooth writing experience, this one is a really lovely pen. So in terms of size, I know I've seen some other more experienced reviewers kind of showing the comparison. It's quite a large pen. You can see it's like, I don't know if that was a good idea. Hold on. So you can see these two pens. This is the Platinum Carbon Black is the shortest pen. So Yeah, just doing a quick comparison, you can see the Platinum Century is the shortest pen. The 743 is the next, like, is a little bit taller than the Platinum. And then the Summer Magic or the BENU Euphoria is the tallest pen. I always post these two pens when I use them. So I'm curious to see, I know what they'll look like. So it's quite a lot taller if you post the pen, as you can see there. I wouldn't recommend posting these pens unless you really want to. I personally do it because I'm always worried, I'm going to lose the cap or it's going to roll off somewhere. So I like to do it, and I like having the extra weight on the back of the pen when I write. But I feel like these ones don't really need them, and I wouldn't want to. They don't really post as comfortably as these two pens either. So yeah, I think those are all my thoughts on these pens for now. I've had a lot of fun using these two pens. When they were inked with Kon Peki, I was really surprised at how smooth these were with writing. I feel like because they glide on the page, it just requires like so little effort. And I can understand that maybe some people would find that off-putting because they might prefer the feedback to feel like they have a little more control over the page. But sometimes when I'm in a writing mood, I just have so many thoughts and I just want to write, like get all of it out onto paper and get it out of my head. And pens like these do a really good job. This stub nib was so fun to use because I don't have a stub nib in my collection, and just writing an entire journal entry with the stub nib was really fun. It just makes writing a little more interesting, and I'm kind of excited to try practicing like different types of fonts with this pen to see if I can improve my headings a little bit in some of my journal entries, again, just for fun. And again, I'm excited to continue using shimmer inks in here. Hopefully it will become my shimmer pen. And with that, I will let you know that I am going to be keeping this Milk and Honey in my collection. I'm really excited about it being a stub nib, and I think it goes quite nicely with my existing collection in terms of like the neutral colored pens that I've been adding to it. This pen though is just absolutely stunning. I can't believe how beautiful this pen is, and just the details in this painting is stunning. I love the shimmer. I think it's just so fun, even though it's called Summer Magic. Like, I would use this pen all year round. I think it's fitting in every season, even in the winter. I think it's just such a beautiful, like, pen, and you can put so many different colors in it. Like, you could put a magenta ink, any kind of purple ink. I even think you could put blue, green. I even think you could put brown. I don't know. So I'm very excited to offer one of these pens to you. If you would like to be entered in to potentially win this pen, I will ask you to make sure you're subscribed to my channel. And then I ask you to leave a comment down below and tell me which pen and nib size would you use? If you went on the BENU website, which pen and nib size would you choose? So I'd be very curious to know what caught your eye on the website and what would you choose. So let me know in the comments. And then finally, I'll ask you to click the link in my description to the Google form to officially enter the giveaway. So in a week's time, which will be March the 23rd, I will randomly select a winner, and I will announce that winner in my community tab. So yeah, I look forward to hearing your responses. If you have tried BENU as well, let me know. I'm curious to know what your experience has been like. I've been so curious for so long, and I can't believe that I had this incredible opportunity. Again, these types of collaborations wouldn't be possible if you weren't watching my videos or commenting on them and just engaging with me. So, thank you so much for all of your engagement. I'm so happy that I'm able to host this giveaway with BENU to share one of these beautiful pens with you. The giveaway will be open internationally because I'm the one who will be sending it. So, feel free to enter the giveaway as long as you have a mailing address that I can send this to. And I think that's everything for today. So if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around with me and hanging out with me on this morning. And I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.